Welcome to the SLT podcast. You know who I am, Ziggy Moore, founder, owner of More Education, and assistant head. I always forget to add that bit,
I was thinking, why you come with all them bars before me? Because I'm a secretary. I work in a school.
Oh no, that's because you're not doing yourself justice. Yeah, if we're gonna be honest. Do you want me to do your intro? Okay, I'm gonna do his intro, yeah, because he's going on like he doesn't have bars. Okay, cool. We're not gonna start over again. We're just gonna do it. So, I've done mine. This is Jordan Crawford, founder of Radical Education, diverse and inclusion equity specialist and trainer. Yeah, vice principal and general good guy.
Love that.
There you go.
Thank you. My brother.
Yes. So, all things diversity, equity, inclusion, challenging thought processes in schools. Nobody does more challenging than Jordan, I tell you. So yeah, don't play yourself down. Don't play yourself down. You're gonna see more of us out here. So we're back. Sorry, we've gone out. We're back with Mr. Sayce Holmes. Servant
Sayce Holmes-Lewis.
Sorry, Sayce Holmes-Lewis.
Don't neglect the dad side.
Bruh.
You're lucky it wasn't the Holmes. So my mum would be cussing.
Sayce Holmes-Lewis.
Yeah.
Servant leader. General in the community. Let's give him his stripes.
Trust me.
General in the community. Let's get this straight. And founder of Mentivity. Is that correct? I did all of the intros today.
Nice.
But one of the things I wanted to speak on that is I'd say a passion of mine, and it's an area I've worked in for the past since 2018, which is AP alternative provisions. Mentivity is starting. Would it be
Respite provision?
Respite provision. Yeah. Okay, tell us what a respite provision is.
Yeah.
And what the offer is, and why you decided to kind of go into that field.
Yeah, I mean, from our perspective, because we go into schools, and I think it's probably good for me to give context.
Please.
I think start with the why first.
Yeah.
I actually, when I started on my journey in my career in education, so 2006, started as a TA at Elton Green, a sports specialist college. So that was the baptism of fire, put it that way. So I was in this school, and I was not happy with what I was earning, but I was coaching, and I was doing okay. But it was a very low paid job, and also the teachers within the school looked down on me as someone who was just here to just fill gaps and, support them, and that I had no expertise. But what I quickly realized in that year was that I was able to build rapport with young people in education very, very well and support them on their journey, and also be that disciplinarian, which was important, and engage them through a number of their passions and understand who they were. So it's a different approach, and a lot of some teachers really respected me, some didn't, and made me feel like that young person who was being marginalised in education. So then I did a year there, and then I was offered a chance to go to work for a pupil referral unit. So I applied for a job, and I started as my real career as a PE teaching assistant in the PRU, which was in Peckham. So Sills.
Oh yes,
so
it
used to be called Willowbank.
Yes,
back then. So I started there. The head teacher was a guy called Anthony Peltier, and he just took a liking to me. When I did my interview, he was like, "Wicked, you're coming on board." So as a PETA, perfect blend. I'm already a coach, got my qualifications in there, and then my TA experience, great. Baptism on fire, boy. Those youths, man, they really made me work.
What year is this in Peckham that you're
2007. So this is when Walk in the Park came out. So gigs, so Black Gang, the young youths are all wearing black. All these are the youngers, and it was mad. But what I saw was the indoctrination of young people that came into PRUs who shouldn't have been there, and basically became this totally different person. And it was just that transformation I wanted to prevent. So I'd only did a year there, and then moved on to my role as a community sports coach for Southwark Council. So I'm still in the area, but across all of my roles, I've always gone back to Sills, and always done a lot of early intervention work there, because I love it. When I left Sills, talking about vulnerability before we started this, the young people, when I did the leaving assembly, they started crying, and it set me off. So we were all crying, and they were like, "Can't believe you're leaving us." I said, "I'm not leaving. I'm just going to do another role, and I'll be back here." So that legacy of that work through Southwark Community Games and through Bethwyn when I was Greenhouse when I was working there full time, and then Mentivity, I've always been in and around SILS. So it's very, very, very important for me to offer that respite for young people before they get into SILS, because I feel that these organisations or these institutions are doing nothing to prevent young people from fulfilling that schools to prison pipeline. That's one of the issues I want to prevent, that this indoctrination of young people through the negative aspects of our culture needs to stop from an earlier stage. That's why we set up this respite provision. The schools can actually send their young people to us rather than these more expensive alternative provisions who are already getting funding but not having a great outcome. So that's what we're now challenging, and we've seen this gap. My mum's set up these provisions, a 6-day provision at SIL. She's done all this stuff. So I said to Mum, blank canvas, here you go, respite provision, you run with it. Let's get this set up at our new building, which is Mentivity House on the Aylesbury estate, and that's going to help us generate income to run that building as well, but also showcase ourselves as a leader in this respite alternative provision setting.
Okay, so you see, for those, I think most of the people here who would be watching this may understand what a respite provision is. So, in essence, they come from like their mainstream school.
Yeah.
So like the school that you join in year 7.
Yeah.
You've got children who are kind of
on the periphery of education.
Yeah. So could it be for attendance, behaviour?
Low-level disruption.
I'm glad you say that.
Yeah.
Just in case anybody doesn't know, most students who are excluded from school is for low-level disruption. So it's not for like fighting, bringing a flipping nuclear warhead into school or anything like that. It's for what we're doing here. Talking.
Yeah.
It's often talking. It's often slight like disorganization, like, oh miss, I'm going for my pen, oh, why are you talking? And it's the constant stuff. So it's low
detention.
A lot of
What for?
Yeah.
Now it's a longer detention for talking back.
Yeah. Now you're in inclusion. Now you're in isolation. And that's one of the problems that we've also got to focus on within education, because we're in those mainstream settings. We can now preempt who that might be. Work with the schools, because obviously managed moves now they're basically elegant exclusions, aren't they? Managed moves. So you're literally moving these young people from pillar to post, not providing support. So we want to just be at the center of that.
And just to talk to you about managed moves,
Are you going to say what I was thinking?
Let's see.
He
No, I wasn't gonna, because he never did managed moves, did he?
vehemently against him.
Yeah.
Right. So I love the way how he's a code. He's you know, he's on the next. So the school that we were at, we don't even call him by his name. We call him by his initials. He's on the next one. We've got to confirm it. The reason why, I will say, even though our head teacher, he'll always be, is he was very much against managed moves, because what a lot of people don't, parents will push for managed moves, and they say it's a fresh start. It's never a fresh start.
Nope.
They have your child marked.
Yeah.
If they sneeze in the wrong direction, they go hachu instead of hachu. They're finished. They mark that child's card, so they'll say, okay, it's not working out at school A. We're going to move child to school B and see how they get on for maybe 6 to 12 weeks. And I'd love to see what the data is, because it's so underhand and there's so much skullduggery. I'd love to see the data.
I love that word.
Skullduggery.
English was one of my favourite subjects. Skullduggery. Clandestine skullduggery.
English. You got me. English is my subject.
Me too.
But there is going to be no data, is there, Jordan, on how successful, what percentage of managed moves result in a child having a long-term placement at a school or being integrated full-time, because it's a setup.
And the outcomes of those
and what the outcomes are. Do you know? And that's why I respect that man, because he never did it, because he knew it was a setup.
Don't respect it.
So you try and get involved before that managed move is happening.
We're already involved, because the mentoring is the first kind of juncture of prevention from a school's perspective. So we've already got this cohort of young people in the school, and we know, based on our knowledge and experience, that this young person needs additional help. So we might start off with a group, and it'll be a group for 12 to 20, and then out of that 20, we'd be like, right, those two need one-to-one mentoring, so we're going to give them that support. So we give them more targeted support, and then we'll we don't, when we get the files from the school based on like the referral forms of the young person, we don't actually go into real depth. We look at that secondarily. Obviously, look at the
meeting them,
the overall thing,
Yeah.
the key points. You know, if they got certain needs or blah blah blah. Fair enough, but we don't want to prejudge that person. We can't judge young people. We've got to start from where they're at, and that's very very key. That's what we do in Mentivity, and that's a principle of youth work: starting where young people are at and building their kind of enlarging their experience of the world. You know, from that personal, cultural, and structural perspective. So we're already involved. So now this is like an extension offer for us in the school. So it's like a full wraparound service.
Okay.
Early intervention mentoring, you pay for that. Now this young person's got a managed move. Okay, we will now use elements of informal education, which is youth work, as well as the formal education, to really improve the outcomes of that young person. And for my mum now, it's from a nurture-centric perspective. She's a nurture specialist.
How much of do you see a correlation between the young people that you work with and the family dynamics?
Oh, yeah. Sometimes it doesn't correlate at all, but sometimes it's just you can see it happening. You can see you met the parent, you've met the young person, you see the environment that they're coming from, you see the turmoil that they're in every single day. And that's one of the hardest things is how we support the parents.
Yes.
And the parents really, because they're already on the defensive because they're already thinking, whoa, what you saying, I'm a bad parent.
Trying to tell me how to do
Yeah.
better.
However, we're like, no, we're here to support you, and we're just trying to support your child. You know, that's the key thing.
Just sorry, just Paul. That's what I've. The whole more education model has switched around.
Yeah.
When we started, it was like tuition,
Yeah,
English and maths, and the more we were doing, and more consultant, what do they call it? Free consultation. Excuse me, English teacher. Happened.
His brain's dead out. He's only got one a day.
One a day.
Lousy, bro. Watch me fire a couple more shots. I realised the parents need the support. I thought it was the kids. It was the parents, and we're moving the model more. We've almost gone to like a 60-40 model where 40% of our energy is to support the parents, and it's almost like the same thing you said, getting the parents out of defensive mode to say, do you know what, this is a judgment-free zone.
Yeah,
we just need to help because the kids need help.
Yeah,
and it's been such a journey for me because I think again because, and I speak about a privilege of having parents who were kind of on the ball, who were quite driven, who weren't going through visible mental health issues at the time, because you've got a lot of parents who are really struggling.
Yeah.
And I have to say that's a privilege. My mum was fairly educated. She was pushing. She was able to do what she was able to produce those outcomes. But yeah, that parent thing is mad, and I think that's a big thing where schools have almost abandoned
1000%.
parents. Schools, it's almost like if you can't get your child to school on time, clothe them, make sure they've got money, make sure they've got this, that, and the other. You're a terrible parent, and we don't even want to engage with you.
That's it.
How dare you?
It's true.
Yeah,
It's true.
and
I've seen it.
Painful.
I would say from a mainstream perspective, there is definitely a correlation between the cohorts, the cohorts where the leaders of those cohorts have strong relationships with the families.
Yes,
the outcomes of the kids are better.
Definitely, and that's what we found in the early years of Mentivity.
Yeah,
we had a lot more time to create bespoke support for young people and work with the parents, which meant home visits. Going to do home visits were a game changer, because when you go into that environment as a singular entity from Mentivity, the parents, the guards down. Yeah. And you got to get them to understand and empathize with them that we're here to support you because you're asking us for help. So therefore, you have to be receptive to learning, just like your young person is. And that's where the difficulty is. And there's a lot of pushback initially, where parents are like, not my child. And then they come back to us 18 months later, yeah, my child. And it's like, all right, cool. Yeah. Now you're going to engage in this process. And sometimes it's very difficult because just like with young people, you can't engage with a young person who doesn't want to engage. Same with the parents. Can't do it. So there has to be some sort of breakthrough. So that work with parents is going to be very, very important because they're crying out for that knowledge, that experience to be shared with them. And when that's the plan at Mentivity House, which is our community centre on the Ellsbury estate, part of the regenerated part of the estate, that we now want to offer respite not only for parents, but also for teachers, where they can come in and just share experiences. have some yoga, have something to eat, you know, in a group setting. That's what we want to do. Really foster community, because we actually don't have true community.
Yeah.
Let's be real. Like, I say this to people all the time. If young people are not safe on our streets or safe in their home, and women are not safe at home on the streets, we don't have community.
Yeah.
Simple as that. And our men are out here doing the madness as well, a minority, but we have to do that policing of our communities ourselves, that rehabilitation of our community. That is going to be only achieved through education and therapeutic support.
It's one of the pillars. Education, one of the pillars of any successful community, isn't
That's it. Yeah.
You're gonna say something, but I cut you off. You remember? Or should I fire another question?
Oh, come back to me. Come back.
Yeah. Alternative provisions are quite a controversial subject in education. I'd like to get your views on Jordan on alternative. Make sure the mic's nice and close.
Do you know
what are your thoughts on the use of alternative provisions, PRUs in the education system? Because it is a very controversial issue. As a vice principal,
how do I answer this question?
Honestly,
yeah. I'll be candid. It's never an easy decision to say to a student or to say to a young person, we don't believe that we can support you in this current moment in time. It's a challenging situation for the school, because it's like, this is a mainstream setting. You have systems and procedures that are in place. Ideally, you'd have a custom or bespoke offer for all students. We have to make adaptations for the needs of all students. But really, truly, this is a mainstream setting. Everyone has to follow these guidelines. If we put all of these things in place to support you to follow these guidelines, and you're still finding it difficult, what are we meant to do in that scenario?
Yeah.
And it's so difficult, because can I hand on heart say that will improve the outcomes of that student? In some cases it does. In some cases, like when we say respite, it's like a shock and awe, like I'm not really trying to be back here, so let me fix up. In some cases they kind of internalize the rejection, and then they internalize the stigma of, I'm now the quote unquote naughty student. So now all I'm going to do is be the quote unquote naughty student. And then can you come back from that? I'd be lying if I said I knew the answer to the question. But it's something that I grapple with daily. Daily.
It's tough, because that rejection, I don't think young people should be marginalized from society through education ever. Because what are we telling our young people? That there's no way that we can negotiate or educate you through this process. It then has to be punitive. And I don't agree with that, because that's what is causing more harm in our communities. If you look at, if the worst of the worst people, of course, punitive measures should be implemented. But these are vulnerable young people who are navigating life and who are actually regurgitating the negative aspects of the environment that's been created by adults. And adults are not taking full accountability, but you're expecting this 12-year-old to take full accountability for everything that's happened to them.
Listen, it's never the kid's fault, essentially. They're a product of their environment. It's not a challenge, it's a question I'm posing. If you don't have jurisdiction over the parent, how are you meant to then address that? If that's the difficulty we're in, isn't it? But and bringing it back to the work that you're doing with Mentivity House and the AP, we were speaking earlier about the parents and the community. It mitigates all of that. Those things are going to happen, but if we can put those preventative measures in place, it reduces the amount of times we have to address things within the family.
Can I be honest? I'm starting to get to the point where again, looking at a lot of data, where I'm generally starting to think, and I'm not a big conspiracy theorist.
Conspiracy realist.
I remember, and I'm going to go back, I think it was in 2001, when the Blair government would have come into their second term, one of the big pushes was something called Sure Start.
Job centres.
No.
What's
So
Sure
Sure Start was a program for parents and children like 0 to 4.
Yeah, early years. Yeah.
Early years. Yeah, it was early years.
Wicked.
I was still very young then, so I might not remember like exactly.
He's trying it. He's trying it.
I know I was 19.
I was still quite young. Yeah, a pup, but it was identified and it made a massive difference.
Yeah.
Where the intervention happens a lot earlier.
Yeah.
So you can, and this is the thing that I get upset about. You can pretty much identify from birth the likelihood of certain outcomes for children. So one of the big indicators is if a child who is in care has a child, that child is a 1 in 3 chance of that child ending up in a care system. Yeah. So things like children, like a big thing that for some reason it's not really spoken about, like children who are from homes of DV, where DV is recorded in the home, the educational outcomes of those children are hugely impacted.
Yeah.
So I don't understand if we know from a very young age kind of who the children are, where they are. There are a range of other factors that we wait until secondary school.
Yeah.
We wait until all of this stuff happens. Then we start mentoring, AP, kick you out of school. But we know where and who they are. I can't understand why certain things just aren't happening a lot earlier. Like, although I know people, he's a war criminal and so on and so forth, but the Tony Blair government identified with the Sure Start and pumped a lot of money into it.
Yeah.
And I remember because they had centres, you had Sure Start centres for parenting and offering resources and parenting classes and all of these things, and you could see the impact to the point where now I don't get it.
But they had the social exclusion unit, didn't they, as well, which was massive. It was all centered around early intervention, which was very, very important, and upskilling the working class or the underclass, the permanent underclass. And that was the ticket that he got the second term, wasn't it? Really?
Yeah.
And then obviously you had in schools, you had the 5-hour offer in terms of PE, which was very, very important. And that's where a lot of funding was ploughed into programs like Southwark Community Gains. So, but it's by design because of who benefits from it. Just follow the money. In these situations, just follow the money. Because we know how expensive it costs, the expense to the economy in terms of a young person that's then marginalised and goes through the criminal legal system, which I'm not calling the justice system because not everybody experienced justice.
Only very few people experience justice.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so we know why, because it's big business. And now with academy chains and the way that they've commodified education, it's just commodified. It should never be commodified.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say it's a conspiracy. I think it's a known thing that the whole public sector has the funds or the resources that the whole public sector has, not just education, social work, social services, the NHS. The funds have been depleted. If you have less funds, you have less capacity to
But even
support.
with those, this may go against Sayce's business model, my job, like everything that we do. But okay, well, plow the money into early years then, and that's the thing. If there's no money here, let's put a significant portion of the money into early years, because and a lot of what's happening, and you know where the kids are. If you speak to a lot of the children at 11, 12, 13, 14, if you speak to a lot of the parents when they do open up, a lot of this could have been nipped in the bud much earlier, way earlier, to the point now we have a child who's so dysregulated and so, where they feel the need to we talk about knife crime. So I'm not sure if you're aware that the VRU, the Violence Reduction Unit, the Mayor of London has put, I think it's like 32. He's put a lot of money.
Yeah, we do a lot of work with them.
You do work into this violence reduction. We've done some work with it, and don't get me wrong, but you're focusing on children who are already engaging in crime. But if you already know who they are, right, put that money in much earlier. But it's almost like, I don't know, I don't want to say it.
You don't want to say what? Say it. This is a podcast.
I'm not you, I don't have not as brave as you. I'm not as brave as I'm not
Because I don't know what you were thinking.
I know it. I kind of know it. It's institutionally racist and institutionally biased, and that's what you got to understand is that, and I think we do understand that, and I know that's what you're trying to say, that you can see it based on the need from our community perspective, which encompasses all demographics.
Yeah.
It's not just African
underprivileged,
group,
underclass.
again, permanent underclass. So I think what it is that we're not in those positions where we can make the decisions that will impact those that are most, who require it the most. And I think what we got to understand is then how do we replicate those systems on a hyper local level? That's the key thing for us, is that we have to then do that, and we've got to be very innovative in terms of how we extract money from the corporate sector, from the VRU, from wherever it may be, or we get funding via research or whatever it is. Like, we're about to partner with the University of East London on some work, and I think that's really important. So we've got now tick boxes to some degree to make sure that we've exhausted all options to make sure that we're getting the investment here, and here's our model, this is what we've done, here's the data, here's the impact. Now we're going to force your hand. So if we're doing that now in all our hotspots in London, and then we present this as a coordinated strategic document to the cabinet or wherever it may be, they can't then turn around and be like, oh, right, no, you haven't done this, you haven't done that. We've got to use their systems to hold them to account.
I think you reference that as well all the time.
What did I say?
About lack of trust in institutions and not putting your not relying on your outcomes to be determined by an institution that has historically not been in our favor. Why would we do that? We do that. Does it make sense?
It has to be Afrocentric, doesn't it? It has to be, because everything's Eurocentric. From education to mental health to it's all Eurocentric.
And do you know what? I agree from a racial perspective. Recently, I've been thinking so much more about the socio-economic impacts of it and the intersectionality between race and class.
Yeah.
Because the way I see it, it's just to dumb it down, or for lack of a better term, the haves and the have-nots.
Yeah.
We were talking about we're not the ones in positions to make those decisions, and the people that are in those positions to make those decisions are not impacted by the decisions.
Yeah.
So it makes no difference.
And they're not culturally aware or competent. And I think that's the key thing, and that's what we've got to showcase, is that we've got to hold people to account through those modes, but also we've got to foster that two-way learning approach. You know, the whole joined-up thinking approach, that was a key thing for the Labour government back then. That joined-up thinking and how you communicated between institutions was very, very key.
Yes.
So I used to work on the Youth Inclusion Project as part of which is a massive youth justice board program back in the day, and then we had a system called CareWorks. CareWorks was wicked, man. CareWorks had all the information based on every provider that did work with that young person. Oh, he's done woodwork, he's done that, and it was up to date. When it was up to date, it was like a great snapshot, real-time data back then, 2008, of what this young person's going through. And be like, oh, he went to woodwork, but he didn't enjoy it because this and this. Right, I'll talk to him in my one-to-one about that. It was really, really great. So with all this, AI digitized world that we're working in, there should be a way for us to communicate real time. And that's what we've actually got now. We've got our own database now called Mentivity, with a company called Mega Nexus. So literally,
that sounds like a big company. That sounds like some mega Nexus. Sorry, that's bigger than skullduggery. Mega Nexus. Sorry.
Yeah, literally.
Sorry. Mega Nexus.
Yeah. So
sorry.
So we created this pilot and this whole later capture model, basically. So they capturing all the data from the young people, but also what we want to make sure is that we're capturing data and what they're doing in other areas. So then that data is going to be very, very important for us. Lucrative in the sense of what we can do in terms of equity in the community based on this data, and saying this hotspot, we've done this, and this, and this works here. This, and this works here. So now you should invest at this stage.
Highest leverage
areas. Stage. Yeah. And that's what we have to do now. So that's where technology comes into play. And that's why I'm talking about the innovation piece. Very, very important.
We're diverging slightly from APA, and I'm going to ask a question. And I just remembered, you have done some work with the Mayor's office. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm on the London Policing Board.
Right. Do you still currently?
Yeah, I'm still there. I nearly resigned after the Cabba verdict, but I've got to be there. I'm an authentic presence. I've got a really great 11 colleagues, including Stuart Lawrence, Paula McDonald, Yeah, those are my people. So we're really trying our best to hold the Met to account in a way that's never been done before through the Baroness Casey review, which set out a recommendation for the board, but also that the Met Police are homophobic, racist, and misogynistic. Yeah. So again, it's just it's a massive beast. 4.6 billion. The Met is current budget. That's greater than some countries' GDP.
Yeah.
You know, so we've now got to figure out what works best for Londoners and we're the middle ground. And so I'm doing that. I've been on that a year, and that's a challenge within itself. So
yeah, man, congratulations on that.
Thank you. It's nothing done yet, but
no, but even having what I would say,
space.
my dad would have said, "When are we?" You know.
yeah. No, I
On the
appreciate
board.
that.
Do you have any more ambitions
I was thinking that.
to
What's
go
the future look like?
into
Politics.
politics? Because I hold on.
I know. Yeah, I'm gonna hold it back.
I am a great believer
Yeah.
in local politics, like councillors.
Yeah.
I'm a passionate believer in local politics, and I get very upset because we've spoken about as a community, we're not really we complain a lot, but we're not engaged in local politics.
Yeah.
Too disaffected.
Yeah. Do you have any ambitions to go into local politics?
No. Reason being, I don't subscribe to the two-party system. I think it's an illusion.
All right, radical educator over there. Let's destroy the system.
You dropping bars on
I can't, man. I can't. It's a cycle of insanity. You know, before when Labour were Labour, we had the public sector spending and, you know, the swelling of the public purse to that degree. Now we've got Tories 2.0, you know, in power. So we've got to understand that how we disseminate this system is going to be very, very important, because we've got to also look at first past the post voting and all that stuff. And this is why we're in this cycle. So we've got to change that legislation as a people. But everything that we do at Mentivity is political without being political, if that makes sense.
Sorry, you finish.
Yeah. So what I do feel is that what I'm doing is that I'm sitting in the right realms to have influence. But also, if I do subscribe to a party, then there's not much that I can do in certain areas of my work. And I have to have that autonomy to be able to do what I do through Mentivity in my work. And I can't be held to a politicised ideals of Tory and Labour at this present moment. If I do it as an independent, that's different. However, yeah, I know. But again, you never know what can happen in the future. But for me, I think there's more that I can do under the guise of Mentivity and what I'm doing now, and the way that I would lobby and raise awareness around certain things, and now strategize with other community leaders and community partners. That's the key thing for me.
I'm going to say some stuff. Because you were about to speak. You speak.
I do know, because all I was going to say, and listen, people hear me when I do I don't like speaking politics, because I get passionate, but I can see we're in learned company. We're in learned company who is aware of the political landscape, and he's speaking from an informed perspective. So I feel a bit more comfortable to speak.
Yeah.
Here's where I challenge you. Yeah, and I think you touched on it. You spoke about your ward, the Aylesbury ward. Yeah. You spoke about 3 roads. So Walworth,
Borough and Bankside. Yeah.
Right, and that's the ward. Yeah. That Aylesbury sits on.
Now Walworth comes under Camberwell now. It's just changed politically.
So Aylesbury sits under what ward?
Under Camberwell now.
Yeah.
Camberwell and Peckham.
Okay. So Camberwell and Peckham ward if you're a councillor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although the demographic is changing, because I can see they're doing works to it. Yeah. To be a local independent councillor, how many votes do you reckon you would need to win a seat?
Not sure.
Okay. I would challenge you to say, I don't think you'd need more than 1,500 votes.
Yeah.
Yeah. As an independent candidate in a specific ward.
Yeah.
Yeah. Without any political party political backing to win a seat on the local council.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't understand.
Yeah.
With all of the work you do, why that wouldn't be, because you could easily get 1,500 votes.
I know I could do that. I know I could do that.
I'll be willing.
I could probably be mayor of London if I really wanted to do it, because that's the way I am. But
I
just don't feel I'm there right now.
Okay.
The work that I'm in the middle of, if this is a long-term body of work, 9 years I've been invested in Mentivity, and we're just making the waves in certain areas that we are now. And this is what we're doing. As I said, this is going against the establishment in the model, the approach that we've done. But I'm conforming in some areas because I have to grow in a certain way. So becoming a charity now is important. So becoming a charity now is important because we've got the narrative around Mentivity, the 9 years of our reputation. So now getting funding for that charity shouldn't be problematic. So now I can generate the income through Mentivity Limited. So I have a limited company, CIC, and a charity. Wow. That way has really helped me navigate because I've now reinvested the profits from the limited company into Mentivity CIC to make sure that we're sustainable because the funding landscape is so unpredictable, especially post-COVID. So now that model with the corporate sector, violence reduction unit, GLA funding, schools contracts has allowed us to have this mixed model which has allowed us to survive. Now the charity will continue to do that work, that core work, but the limited company now, we would license our programs out to schools, get across the UK. We can do a lot more kind of thought leadership and things like that. And that, I feel, would be that politicized vehicle to actually do a lot of that work, which I know will lead me to that juncture at some point.
Okay.
But it's whether I'm going to be here or not. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
I don't think it could ever be a bad thing for the community to have somebody like yourself who is embedded in the community, who's already given so much back to the community, to be a leader, a political leader in the community. Yeah. I don't disagree with that. What I would say is I could give you many examples throughout history where the biggest change has never come through political leaders deciding to change things for the better. They've always been forced to through grassroots movements. And the thing for me that really solidified my thinking on this was the 2005 Disability Discrimination Act. I remember watching footage of the BBC of people with disabilities handcuffing themselves to buses because they needed the government. This happened for years. They were campaigning for years for the government to pass legislation to make employment for people with disabilities have parity within that. And that made me think, if you can't even put things into law to make sure that people with disabilities have equality, I know you ain't gonna do anything unless we make you do it. Exactly. And then I go back to the LGBTQ movement. It's the Stonewall riots in New York. If I think about the suffragettes movement and the women's right to vote, if I think about the civil rights movement, if I think about even if we talk about the NHS, that came off the back of 2 world wars. It wasn't because the government said, let's nice
give
to
everyone
people.
Free healthcare.
They had no choice because they needed a healthy workforce. I can't think of any substantial positive change within society that haven't come from the grassroots. So the impact isn't as substantial as I think we're perceived to.
So I agree with you, and I think that this movement that is Mentivity is fostering so much changes in the hearts and minds of people, not only within the community but also outside the community, because that's where the support is. I'm garnering the support now, because people in areas where they can actually make those decisions and make those changes. You know, we've got to start thinking more widely. How do we change legislation in these areas so that we have law on our side first and foremost? It's like with police stop and search, for example. You got Section 1 of PACE 1984, but that was created thinking about adults. So when we talk about stop and search for young people, what's the legislation that protects young people? And then also on the other side, which sounds a bit controversial, protects the police from when things go wrong. Because now we've got to understand that if we don't change that legislation, we won't see the outcomes that we want to see. So that's why I feel that if I did subscribe to either Labour or Tory, or even sometimes to independent, as a councillor, there's a code of ethics I need to conform to, which then I can't be radical in that area if I really want to do that. And that's who I am. I'm a disruptor. You know what I'm saying? I will say the things that people say in their house. I will say it in the London Policing Board and look the commissioner in the eye. I will say it to David Lammy and tell him, brother, I don't respect you, you know, and this is who you are. Like, I don't care. If you're, Home Secretary, I don't care. That's how I am.
Why are you looking all like that?
Yeah, no. Listen. I got in trouble. Yeah, I got in trouble in 2008. Yeah. No, when was it right? 2009. 2011. I started a Facebook group called David Lammy Must Go. It's still around there somewhere. David knows. You with me? He knows. He's my local MP.
David's a punk, mate.
We'll edit that out. We'll edit that out. Just to, and I was speaking on this. Where David's really going to show his investment and what he really thinks about our community is a local issue that's happening currently with one of his local constituents, and how he, as a foreign secretary, how he's going to leverage his position as foreign secretary and his connections to help a young man who is currently abroad,
Dubai.
abroad,
Right.
facing 20 years in prison. I would assume as his local MP and a senior member of the Labour Party, that he should be able to ensure the safe return of one of his constituents. And I believe in David Lammy, and I believe that he will do everything in his power to do what he knows he needs to do. We'll leave it there.
He's saying that for YouTube.
Huh?
Saying that for YouTube.
I'm saying that for my honest opinion. I believe that...
Can we ask David Lammy about the Ford report
Mm.
and what his party is going to do about the institutional racism?
Ford
The QC.
Reminds me.
The barrister Ford done a report on institutional racism within the Labour Party,
Oh, yes.
and they found that Labour's mad racist.
Yeah.
Where is that report? They tried to silence it. They want to be talking about. Let me not.
Yeah,
Ask David Lammy about the Ford report.
the editor will, because we've kind of moved away from APs, but we've got more political because it is a political issue.
Yeah,
very much.
And we need to understand, and this is what I respect about what you do. Everything's political.
Yeah.
It's not just a show. It's not, and if you're not informed and if you're not aware that it is all political, then the work you're doing cannot aim to hit and puncture the sides of the system that we're trying to challenge. So
That I agree with.
but again, just to kind of round it up again from an AP perspective, as you said, it's we spoke about managed moves, we spoke about respite. I'm going to ask this question: your experience in the community. We've spoken about race. Black girls are currently there's a massive surge, specifically in Black Caribbean girls being excluded from secondary school.
Yep.
I'm looking at the data. I'm looking at the data and I'm seeing it in real life. It's mad. Before we wrap up, and because I work in the APs, what do you think just the key causes around that?
A lot of confusion about who they are and who they're not. Because of patriarchy, because of misogynistic outlooks, young women, especially Black Caribbean women, who come from households where they have strong, predominantly Black women in their households, they're replicating those behaviours to a higher degree and through that masculinity, because that's a way to survive in these environments. Because when you go into schools and you know when boys are referring to girls as bro, listen bro, it's like
Even the girls.
you know what I'm saying. So it's like you now, what and who are you?
Yeah.
So to survive in this really, really toxic, violent environment, you have to conform to what the majority are.
Yeah.
So that's a survival mechanism I'm seeing. So I think that's why we're seeing that. And because we're seeing this now replicated in social media, this is what they're seeing on a routine basis.
norm,
That, for want of a better word, there's a ratchet outlook that many young people have because elders are showcasing that within society, that this is the way to navigate the world. And that is a microcosm of a wider issue that we have, but we don't run our own media. We don't have our own national. We have one national newspaper. We don't have a media network. We don't have all these different things. The music's not controlled by us. So what are we doing now to educate these young girls, impressionable girls, that this is who you should be, that you can be vulnerable, but they can't be, because they're going to get exploited on a level which is far more harmful than it is for a boy, unfortunately, because of that long-standing effort. So what we're going to see now is that this kind of indoctrination, negative indoctrination of our young Black women, who are now not going to want to have children or whatever it may be, it's
That's
by
the
design.
That's
what I'm seeing anyway.
Mr. Crawford, to wrap us up, what are your thoughts? What are you seeing?
You know, I love when we get political. I think everything is linked. I think you've hit the nail on the head, and the work that you do is gonna have. It's going to be generationally impactful. I think we've already seen that, and the ideas you have, and the moves that you have planned, and the moves that you're making currently. I don't even think we can comprehend how impactful it's going to be to your community, and then we can use that as a blueprint, for other communities around the nation.
That's what that's the approach. That's what I'm trying to do for Mentivity. That from a local perspective, in the midst of gentrification, regeneration, as I said, that's localized colonialism. So how do we counteract that? If we're talking about development from development principles, how are we creating these communities that are going to develop in a way that we need? How are we now coordinating our efforts to make sure that, okay, this demographic of young people need to now go into apprenticeships? That's the pathway for you.
Yeah.
You guys can go into academia. You're going to be the ones that then really now shape legislation. So this is what I'm saying. Our strategy, we don't have a strategy. We're all working independently, and we're doing
silos.
But we have, but it's not by choice sometimes, because it's out of what the environment is. These fires are being set not by us, and we're out in fires. And when you're busy out in fires, you can't strategize. So it's difficult. But again, how do we come together as consortia to create funds, whether it's an endowment fund, or whether we're investing in things together, or we're extracting from the corporate sector? There's strength in numbers, but I feel that we're getting closer to that, and that's something that I really want to push next. That's why I feel that being a counsellor for me is going to restrict what I need to do.
Take away from that.
But also, we talk too much about what we're going to do. If we go back to 50, 60 years ago, it was all in clandestine, rooms, and we strategize. We now have got to infiltrate these systems and then take that information and replicate the systems in a way that benefit us. Capitalism is not going to save us. We understand that, but we live in a capitalistic country, so we need those resources to some degree. But also how are we then reclaiming spaces like Mentivity House to create spaces for our Saturday schools, our Sunday schools, our youth clubs, our healing sessions. That's what's important now, and that's what I'm trying to do with Mentivity, that we can pick up this model, bring it to Tottenham and say, look, now we speak to this and this person, we've got a venue. Now we work with these organisations, you're going to do this, and this helps us in terms of our liberation, our collective liberation, and that's where I see it.
Oh, powerful stuff. Again, it's been a pleasure. More education. No, this isn't more education, it's the SLT podcast. Let me get it right. Please, if you like this type of content, this is what we're pushing. The reason we pointed at each other, because we're supposed to have Stuart Lawrence, isn't it?
All right, yeah.
We're gonna get him onto the podcast.
You got contact with him and all that? Cool.
Yeah. But any
I'll prompt him. I'll prompt him, man. Stuart's my guy, man.
Yeah, man.
We're on the London Policing Board, and we're on the board of Lambeth Tigers, one of the biggest football clubs. So that's my brethren, man. So
come on. Brilliant. Yeah, no, he reached out independently.
Yeah,
literally, I was like, raw.
So Stuart's my guy.
Yeah, man. Please make sure you like, subscribe, follow. We have a lot more coming up, a lot of content. We're doing a lot of stuff with the SLT podcast. So we really want to make sure that education, conversations with educators are at the forefront of what we should be talking about, as opposed to some other conversations that aren't as necessarily progressive or impactful within our community. So the SLT podcast, like, subscribe, follow, share, all that good stuff. Thank you very much for coming on.
All right, respect, man.
Appreciate it, man.
Respect, man. Thank you.
Man. Thank you. Take care.